My name is Allie Tharp. I'm a senior organizer of Green Faith. So glad you're all here. Thank you for being here for this media training call for the Faiths for Climate Justice mobilization. Today, I'm joined by Green Faith's Lynette Otieno, Interim Communications Manager, and Rose Gwynn, Digital Manager. And as a reminder, please go ahead and say hello, put your name, your location, your faith community in the chat. As we begin, we remember the land we are on. We acknowledge that around the world, many of us who are not Indigenous First Nations peoples live on lands that were taken through settler colonialism. Even now, land is still being taken by corporations and governments, leading to continued loss of cultures, of livelihoods, of life. The land itself is crying out because we are taking from it rather than living in right relationship with the earth that gives us all what we need to live. We acknowledge the pain and the suffering, the loss of habitat, damage to soil, air, water, many life-giving systems. We acknowledge this desecration, the values of care and reciprocity with the earth that have been disrespected, as have the people who practice these values. In making this acknowledgement, we lift up our desire to live in respect, peace, and right relations with the earth and with one another. We are mindful of broken covenants and relations and promises made to and with Indigenous peoples around the world. By making this land acknowledgement, we are honoring the land and we are honoring the Indigenous heritage everywhere, which dates back over 10,000 years and continues still. We seek to remember that we belong to the land and we belong to each other. We pause to remember. We pause to commit to climate justice. We pause. Thank you. Okay, so and now we will be led by a spiritual moment by Green Faith's Reverend Abby Mohat.
Hi, everyone. Where I am in the world in Chicago, it's morning time, and my child, Juniper, is taking in a huge pile of books because stories matter. The way we tell them, how we share photos, the images, the messages that we share, they stick with us. They stick with us from the very beginning of our lives. And so this morning I'm holding the gratitude of how stories hold us and they change us. They push us to action. In my tradition, our sacred texts are full of stories of God breaking into the world to show up and to say again and again that we are called to love each other, to love the planet, and love God. And so this morning, as we practice telling the story of faithfully showing up for climate justice, I'm grateful to be in the work with each of you, faithfully finding our way and telling our stories. May it continue to be so.
Thank you, Abby. Okay, friends, today we're going to cover a lot of information about communications and media around our actions for Faiths for Climate Justice. Here you'll see a slide with an overview of what we'll cover. So part one is setting up a visually appealing action. The main things we'll cover today are designing your action, branding and storytelling, photos and social media, and getting media coverage and having stories that create change. So I'm going to pass it over to Rose, who will go into our first section a bit more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rose, and I'm the digital manager at Green Faith, and we need to tell our collective stories. Oil, gas, and coal are the root cause of the climate crisis. We know this, but despite their destructive reality, constant warnings from the scientific community, and increased suffering of innocent people, there is still no global agreement to limit the production of coal, oil, and gas or to end deforestation, or all the other major causes of climate change. And at the same time, 700 million people lack access to electricity. And most of these are women and children, the most vulnerable among us. They desperately need access to clean, affordable power for education, healthcare, livelihoods, quality of life. If governments and financial institutions do not address these threats with far greater commitment, billions of people face a cruel and unjust future.
Thank you, Rose, for that explanation of what we are targeting with all our actions. And on top of what Rose has said, I would clearly state that this is why diverse grassroots religious groups are coming together between September and December through a goal, a multi-faith education forum, a series of multi-faith public actions, and a call from the grassroots to world leaders before the G20 and the COP27. We are calling on world leaders to take the steps needed to address the crisis of climate change and poverty. We are demanding their commitment to an immediate end to new fossil fuel projects and deforestation. We are also demanding an equitable phase out of existing fossil fuel production that allows the most vulnerable countries and communities the time they need to develop widespread renewable energy. We also demand a massive, generous commitment by wealthy countries to adjust energy transition that is comfortable for everyone. These three principles, which reflect our highest values and aspirations, are the non-negotiable commitments required to address the climate and energy crisis with the passion it deserves, the love, and the equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. So with our why strongly as our foundation, we're going to jump in. And I just want to tell you at the outset, we're going to give you a lot of information on this call. I want you to not worry. We're going to send these slides to you at the end of the call, and they will have all the answers, all the information, and we're going to provide additional resources for you that you will have to go through later. So please don't worry about trying to capture everything or trying to remember everything. We want you to be able to be present and be part of this community as we're learning and growing together. And please feel free, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We're here to support you. We want to make this call as much of a helpful resource as we possibly can. So with that, we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to start sharing my slides. So let's get those up. So part one is setting up a visually appealing action. And we're going to talk about why this is so important. When someone walks by your Face for Climate Justice public action, they should be able to understand your message. They should know who it is that you're targeting. And as part of our Green Faith values, they should feel welcome to join in on the action. And so now we're going to talk about how we accomplish those goals. So first, let's talk about branding. What is branding? If you would like, please put in the chat what you think of when you hear the word branding, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. A brand is basically a product, service, or concept that is publicly distinguished from other products, services, or concepts so that it can be easily communicated or marketed. So a brand is what makes us stand out from everyone else. And why is branding our public action so important? Well, part of the power of Green Faith is our grassroots numbers. You know, we 80% of the world is a person of our people of faith. And when we unite together, that's how we really make change happen. So while we are very diverse regionally, culturally, geographically, even religiously, our Green Faith brand unites us, and it shows the world that there are many of us. And this is what gets the attention of media and our targets, the people that we're asking for change. When they see, oh my gosh, there's all these people out here demanding this change, that's when you see change happen. So let's talk about visually designing your action. I'm wondering, what do you think is the reason why visuals are such an important part of having a public action? Please feel free to write your answer in the chat. So eye-catching visuals draw people to your message. So when they walk by, if someone were to walk by this action where you're seeing these signs, the first thing that your eye sees is the colors, and that's what captures your attention. And when we present a message in a way that's attractive and in a way that's appealing, we're automatically predisposed to have a positive response to that message. So it's interesting and it gets people's attention. And when we're taking action in public as people of faith, part of our goal is to get attention so that people take our demands seriously. So what distinguishes a green faith public action? So there's a few things. As you all know, we're a global multi-faith, diverse grassroots movement. And so when we show up in public, we show up as people of faith and spirit. We're bringing our hearts, we're bringing our souls, we're bringing our values out into the public. And the next thing is that we want our message to be very clear. As one of my favorite thought leaders likes to say, clear is kind. And it's always helpful when people look and they know exactly what you stand for and what you're doing. So the more clear we can be with our message, the better. Now, also important, and you don't see it in this photo that I have on the screen, but if at all possible, you want your target to be in the photo. That way, when someone sees that photo later, it tells a story. They see the target, they see the person, they see the message. Immediately they're saying, okay, here's people of faith, they're against fossil fuels, they're asking this specific bank to stop funding them, and it all becomes clear just from this one picture. You also want to always, if possible, have people facing outward. Imagine if you walk by a group of people on the street and they're all facing each other, turned inward. They may seem like they're having a private conversation. You're definitely not going to interrupt them or walk up to them and try to talk to them. So as much as possible, when we're out in public taking action as Green Faith, we want to invite people to join us and we want to be facing outward. And you also, for the same reason, if you have a speaker at your action, be sure that they're visible, that they're facing outward, that as many people as possible can see their face. Because as human beings, we're wired to look for faces and to be drawn towards other people. So next, we're going to talk about how to plan ahead to get really good photos and visuals for your action. And it is important. I think there's some of us may have a concept that great art and great photography is this, this natural talent that some people have and some people don't. But the truth is that really good visuals, really good photography, really good art all involve a lot of planning, and it's very intentional and it's very purposeful. And that's great news because that means that you can take awesome pictures at your action, even if you've never done it before. There's a couple of really simple elements. If you plan ahead, you can get those great photos that are very effective at communicating your message. So we're going to look at an example right now of a photo of a Green Faith action. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. And I'm going to read off the answers that you put in the chat to this question, but why is this a great Green Faith photo? Considering everything that we just talked about, what do you think about this picture makes it successful? Colorful, intercultural people. Yes, it's a diverse group of people and there's lots of color. What else about this picture makes it successful? How is it communicating our message? large crowd and the White House is in the background. That's right. So the target's in the background. You can see that we're people of faith. You can see that it's inclusive. Yep, that's right. And a lot of younger people. Yeah, we need to have younger people. We need people of all ages and all demographics. This is a all hands on deck situation. The focus is clear. That's right. People are taking a prayerful stance, wearing their faith attire. There's no wasted space. Yeah. So, and they're in action, singing together. So these are all things that really draw your attention and communicate a clear message. So we'll go through these elements one by one. So you can see our faces are visible and they're in action. They're doing a public action of showing their faiths, and the target is in the background. You can see what they're protesting, which is the White House. And everyone is facing the camera. And lastly, oh, sorry. So this is another picture of a recent Green Faith action at Total Energies. And I'm curious, what do you see in this picture that makes this photo an effective photo? Put your answer in the chat. What elements do we see here? The Total facility, yes, you see the target. That's right. Does anyone know what that big silver thing behind Martin is? The idea of EACOP is very clear. It's a pipeline, yeah. So this is an action protesting the East African crude oil pipeline. And you can clearly see Martin is wearing his green face shirt. You can see that they're holding signs that say stop and then EACOP, and you see the target and everyone's facing the camera. So let's look at another picture. What do we see in this photo that makes this an effective photo? I'll take just a couple more examples and then we'll move to the next section. People in action. There's a lot of messaging. Yes, you can see a lot of no faith in fossil fuels, stop EACOP. Yeah. Someone says, love the no faith in fossil fuels sign. That's right. So it feels exciting with the people moving. Yeah. So we're going to move now to part 2 of our telling your story. And we're going to talk about telling your story through photos and social media. Now, we've already talked a little bit about planning your action, planning your visuals, and thinking ahead about how you want to set things up so that you can get great photos. And now we're going to talk about the actual process of taking those photos and posting them on social media. So first, let's talk a little bit about why telling your story on social media is so important. So telling your story on social media is important because it helps to broaden your reach, right? So here's an example of a recent social media post that we shared. And what you'll notice is that we have tagged a lot of our partner accounts. We have tagged the assembly where we were at the time, and you'll notice the hashtag Faith for Climate is there. You can see that in this photo, our message is clear. We're walking as people of faith. And so this is an example of an effective social media post. Let's go to our next slide. So visual stories expand the impact of your action by 2 ways. It helps your action get noticed by press, and it also helps allies to notice and to hear about your movement, hear about what you're doing, and want to get involved. So here's another example of an effective social media post. You can see a lot of the elements that we've covered already are present here. You have very clear signs, you have colorful, a lot of people, they're in action, and their message is clear. And you can see in this post, they actually have tagged their target at Bank of America. So let's talk about what makes an effective photo. So as we talked, again, this is a little bit of a review, but we'll go over it one more time. In your photo, you want to have a clear focal point. You want people's eyes to be drawn in. You want to show people are in action. You want to see interesting visuals or a crowd in the background. That communicates a sense of power, a clear message, color, contrast, and high resolution. So keep in mind that the impact that you make on the ground at the action itself is just the first initial wave. There are many more waves of impact that come when we share our actions through media, through social media, and through print media. So these posts and these actions that you take will far outlast just the action at the time of doing it. It'll continue to have an impact long after everyone has gone home. So let's talk a little bit about some posts that you could plan ahead and think about as you're planning your Face for Climate Justice action. Think ahead about what sort of story that you want to tell with your social media sharing. You'll see here that these are some examples. You see the first photo, people are preparing their action, they're painting a banner. Second, they're saying, you know, our signs are printed, we're ready to go, we're so excited, they're building excitement, they're building momentum. Then you see pictures of them in action, calling on their target to make the change that they're asking for. You see the target in the photo. And then you also see at the end a post that's reflecting on the action. And hopefully even you can, if you notice that you were able to reach your target, you were able to see change happen, be sure to share that out. And so that other people can celebrate with you, and so that everyone can see how wonderful. So we're going to very quickly run through these preparatory examples so that you can see them up close a little more. And we're a little short on time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these slides, but this just gives you an example. These are very simple, you know, cartoon drawings, but they help get an image in your mind and a template of what sort of pictures you might want to take at your action. So here you have people at their place of worship praying together. Here they're taking public action as people of faith. So what are some tips for taking great photos? Right now, I want you to say to yourself, I am a master photographer, because it's anyone with a decent phone can actually be a really good photographer. So I don't want you to feel like just because you don't have a degree in photography that you can't get some amazing pictures at your action. You don't need a special camera. Your phone probably has a really great camera. Make sure that if you are the photographer or the person that's in charge of taking photos, that you charge your phone ahead of time. When you go to take pictures, make sure you hold your phone like this, not like this. You want to get that landscape view for those photos. And if you are the person who's in charge of taking pictures, please be sure to protect your focus, protect your time. Try not to be taking on too many other jobs, because taking pictures requires you to pay attention to what's happening and be ready to respond when something happens and you need to get that picture. Things tend to unfold pretty quickly once you're on the ground. And so here are some tips that I have for you for sharing your photos online, AKA the interwebs. Sometimes we like to be a little silly at Green Faith and have a little bit of fun. So this is my way of injecting some fun into this long presentation. So you want to think about your photos and the posts that you want to make ahead of time. Like we reviewed those sample posts. Think about some language that you want to include with your posts. You know, like what are you what is the change that you're calling for? Are you asking for no more funding for fossil fuels? Are you asking to stop deforestation? Are you asking for no more coal? What are some creative ways you can communicate that message? Make sure that ahead of the event, you're already logged into any social media pages you want to post on, so you're not doing those logistics while you're at the event. You also want to take into account any hashtags that you want to share. For Face for Climate Justice, we're using the hashtag Face for Climate. So always use that every time you post, always use the hashtag Face for Climate. Because when, as Lynette will cover later, when the media hears about what you're doing and they see that hashtag, if they click on that hashtag and they see, oh my gosh, there's 10,000 posts under Face for Climate, this is a huge deal. I definitely want to cover this story. So always use that hashtag. That's another way that we project power. And if you're taking action with any partner organizations, any other groups, be sure to be movement generous and tag them in your posts, and make sure to give them credit for being part of the movement together. And last but not least, be sure to, as soon as you get home, just go ahead and upload all of those photos to the computer, to whatever storage you're using. We have a Green Faith photo library where you can upload all of your pictures right away, and we'll help get those organized and sorted by region, so they're easy to find, easy for people to use. So that is those are my tips that I have for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we also will have time for questions later. And so with that, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to pass on to my esteemed colleague, Lynette. Lynette's going to talk about getting her action covered by the media. So Lynette, take it away.
Thank you, Rose, for a very good training for us. I'm going to share my screen immediately. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So what are we talking about today, and why would we want to have our actions covered by the media? And the main thing, or the first reason why you would want to approach the media, is because you want to be seen. You want your action covered. You want the people you're working for, or who are funding your actions, to see that you're working. You want to reach the person who your message is targeting, to reach them in whatever way, if it's media, mainstream media, or social media, or word of mouth, or hearsay, or whatever. You find at the end of the day, you want your work visible by someone. So the two main targets are mainly your target audience, who is the people you need to change action or to act in some way, and your funders. So what are the basic ways of getting media attention? The very basic, there are many others, but first, before you know who you're going to deal with in the media, you're better off knowing who they are. So research before you get there, research about them before you approach them, and have some knowledge of the columns they run. If it's a print, if it's a TV station, do they have some programs that you're familiar with, which you can relate and say, I want my info covered in this section of your media, or in this section of your paper, or in this part of your radio show. So know the programs they have, know the info, the kind of info necessary for you to approach any of the reporters or the editors in that newsroom. Also, it's important for you to know the kind of reporters who are dealing with the matters that you cover. For instance, at Green Faith, our actions are targeted towards achieving climate justice. So who in which media house concentrates on such kind of information, or such kind of writing, or such kind of reporting? You can look for that person's information or contacts, already knowing that they are good in this kind of work. So before you have found information about them, you're better off researching. Number two is sending a media advisory just the day or 2 days before your action. So be very sorry, let's go by slide. The first one I already finished. So the second one is sending your media advisory. So what really is a media advisory if you were to be asked? So you can put that in a chat if you have any idea what it is. I would give you that the other name for this is a press invite. So what's the purpose of a media advisory or a press invite? It is to invite the press to come and cover your actions a day or two before. You have to send these prior to the day of the event. So what are the contents of your media advisory? It has to state what you're going to do or what your event is all about, when it is going to happen, be very clear about the date, who is going to be part of this event, and where is it going to be, all the 5 Ws, at least 4 of them, because the how to do it may come later or they may observe. But the first, the what, the where, the who is going to be in this event, and the when are most important for you. So you can get a sample media advisory later in the notes that will be shared. After this, you can send a press release together with photos, and I underline together with photos. Why? A press release, first of all, is released immediately after your event. What you do as someone who's an organizer or someone dealing with communications within your organization is have a pre-written press release so that when your event is happening, you will just be topping up should there be someone who speaks something new that was not in the script. And this one must be released at least within the day. It shouldn't take even 1 hour after your event. So release it immediately. It's very important. And why? Because it needs to be served hot. A press release will only enable the reporters who are covering you to present a news item. Any other story done after that and called news will be stale. So by tomorrow, another event would have taken place and making yours a bit stale, and so that no one really wants to look at it. They may just do features about it, which you can do as a follow-up. But for immediate release, always have your press release shared within the day at latest. And why would you send your press release with photos and not without photos? Based on experience, I can tell you that for every 1 newspaper produced, 2 or 3 more are killed. Killed in what way? Stories die. Not all stories that are sent to the media houses get published because of space. The same with the digital publication. As much as they have spaces in the digital platforms, it doesn't guarantee, or it's not a guarantee that if you send them a story, it will be published. So what if you sent your story and an editor has the opportunity to look at it? Remember that you're dealing with human beings. Me, as myself, there are emails that come to my email today, to my inbox today, because I don't think they are so urgent. I may read them 2 or so days later. And that happens with the editors who also receive these news items that we send them in the name of press release. So just assume that you're lucky that this person clicked on your email and they got the press release. You're not guaranteed that they're going to click the next email you're going to send with photos. So try as much as possible to maximize on the opportunity of 1 click. Should you just have 1 opportunity that your email is read, then it should come with the press release and photos. So even in the press release, remember to clearly state the 5 Ws. That is what is happening, why it is happening, when it happened, who was there and why it happened, plus the how. So they are called the 5 Ws and a H. Enough quotes from speakers will also be good for journalists because they have a variety to pick from. Because again, from your press release, very few would publish it as it is. They'll have to write or appear to have written it themselves, the story themselves. Be very specific about the resolutions. Most of the time, these resolutions become the intro of the story that the journalists will pick. So they will come, for instance, and say, today, this faith-led group has called on government to do this and this, or called on these Total Energies or whoever we were targeting to do this and this. As a resolution, they are going to do this and this. So those ones become the intro for the reporter, as much as for you in the press release, it may come at the bottom, and we can still expound more should you be having questions. So the press release must also be accompanied by photos. That one I have explained, and remember that your story is competing with 1,000 others that I have explained, and that applies for TV, radio, print, and digital. There's no newsroom that always has space for all the stories that will come. And time is key. I already said news is best served hot. And what do you do when you have an opportunity to talk to the media? How many times do you always get this kind of opportunity? That's a good question to ask yourself. Should you get one, what do you do? So always have your talking points at the fingertips. You never know what these people are going to ask you, but should they divert from what you agreed or what you told them you're likely to talk about before, always find a way of reframing the question or bringing back politely, don't be rude about it, or bringing back the talking points that you had crammed or fixing them somewhere within the topic you're discussing. So no matter what question you're asked, always find a way to go back to these talking points. So you'll also be given a sample talking points. Again, how do you still reach out to these media? Be available for media interviews. There are moments when media will just come and look for you because they think you have a grasp of what they want to publish on that day. Yours may be just an addition to a story that is also going on. That is still PR for you. And whatever PR you get, grab it with two hands. So if they approach you for questions for an interview, take that gladly and make maximum opportunity for it. Still drop those many talking points you always have, even when they don't ask it, because they came to look for you, also ask for opportunity to also say what you think they should know. Another way is to write opinion pieces and share them widely. And why do I talk about op-eds? Opinion pieces are, if you know what they are, you can write down. If you don't think you know what they are, I can always give you more ideas. That this personal feeling about a topical issue, it may not be topical also, it may be something that is long lasting. What's your opinion about the current happenings at the ECOP, for instance? What's your opinion about the war in Russia? So you just express yourself. It's a personal conviction that you'll express in writing. Once you've sent this, you can use this opportunity to write what you think your organization or Green Faith is it's thinking about this issue that is going on in this and this particular area. So once you've written such opinion pieces, spread widely. And spreading them widely means sending to media houses plus their opponents or their competition. They will not feel bad. That is your opinion and you've shared it, and they don't catch feelings. So know your target media house again, know which kind of media houses have more space for climate justice issues or climate change issues or environment issues. Take advantage of that. Opinion pieces can be sent as many as possible. The trick, however, is that you must be knowing that these might expire as well. So write on something so that can last longer, so that if your opinion piece, the opinion piece you wrote this week is not published this week, it can still be relevant next week. So that is called something with a longer shelf life. And then pitch stories with longer shelf lives again. Go to the media and say, I think this story can be of interest to you. That story, if it is news, forget about it, because they employ their own news reporters. But if it is a feature that can be researched for a while and more questions and interviews done, you can pitch where necessary, or if possible, fund their journalists to go to where action is taking place and then let them observe and also guide them on what they should see that you think they should tell the world. Avoid PR when you get opportunity to speak on TV. And by this, I mean, I am working for Green Faith. I've been told to go and talk about ECOP in a TV interview. And after every one sentence, I drop, we at Green Faith, we do it this and this way. You're going to be annoying to these people, and you will get away with it today. They will not call you again for another interview because you will have used them for PR that is not paid for. Dress simple for TV interviews in studio because you want to get the right attention. You have not gone there to show your beauty. If you're a woman or a man, you haven't gone there to show your muscles. Just be appropriate, simple, smart, because what you want people to know is what's in your head, the content in your head. So maintain the kind of attention you want. Who is observing or who is watching? You've not gone there. If that is your secondary, if your intention is to show off or looks or stuff like that, that should be secondary to the main purpose that took you on TV and the main purpose why they would have invited you for an interview. So ask for questions ahead of time if you're going on interview. A TV interview, the anchors or the interviewers may not be having a deep knowledge of what you do. Good ones always research, but it's good just to guide them that this is the area that I am good at. Please ask me questions around this area. If it's climate finance, you're strong in. If it's gender mainstreaming in this, you're strong in. If it's loss and damage and all that, just be clear ahead of time and stick to the truth. Avoid maligning, avoid messing people's name or lying about organizations that you don't like. It always gives you that credibility to be called next time. Tag selected media houses on social media. Rose really said that and even gave an example. Thank you. And then in case of a problem, in case of a conflict, in case you're likely to lie, or in case you're likely to spoil someone's name on an issue, no comment is also a very valid comment. Just say, I have no comment for now. I'm still waiting for information to come from the organization, or my organization will give an official statement on this matter. No comment will always give you another PR, because if they wanted a comment from you and you said no comment, they're going to say that our efforts to get a comment from the Green Faith Executive Director were futile. Already they've named Green Faith here, and then the fact that you did not want to comment, it doesn't matter. They have already said that you commented by saying no comment. So take advantage of those. Don't be too loud or too quick to talk if you're not sure of the possible repercussion of your statement. So our script and reframe questions, we already discussed that earlier, and look at the bigger picture. What is your relationship with editors within your locality? How often do you call these editors? How often do you meet them? Do you only call them when you need them to publish your work? Remember again, always that you're dealing with human beings. So if they feel used, sometimes they will not honor your requests. So if there are opportunities for funding, for grants, for stories to be done, for travels to COPs and such, be sure to always forward them or share with the editors who you keep interacting with, so that they know that you also care about them, because you're dealing with human beings. When you go for conferences or in-house buildings or in a match, and this is the last point on this slide, sit strategically. It is not for any other reason but to be seen. Remember, we want to be loud about what we are doing. We want to be seen to be doing something. In a crowd or in a conference or in a room where many other organizations are, what are the chances that you will be seen if a cameraman came with a camera and just did one snap on the people at the front row? If you can't get a seat at the front row and there's an opportunity to ask a question, just lift your hand and say, I have a point to add, even if it means emphasizing a point that someone has said. Just don't leave a room without giving your opinion on a topical issue being discussed where media is. And of course, do not betray your intention. Your intention, of course, is to be seen, but also remember that you have to help build or add value in whatever you're going to say. Creative banners capture, that one Rose really handled clearly. They will always capture the attention of the media. And something else on handling dispute. Once in a while, your organization is going to have a problem with media. Chances are that you will disagree on certain times. There are moments where media may misreport you, may misquote your leader, may misquote you as a person. And it is normal to be agitated. It is normal to be annoyed with them. But think of the day after today. Are you going to need this particular media that misreported on you again? So give space for future engagement. How do you do that? You can always ask for right to give or feedback, to give back, to respond on the same issue and clarify and say, can I write an opinion piece stating clearly or putting things into perspective in response to what you people said, they will allow, and that one is almost given, because the other option is to take them to court. And do you want to go in that direction if you're going to still need these people? No, unless it is very necessary. So see ways of handling, better ways of handling dispute with media. Another thing is you never know which editor is working today in this media house that you're going to disagree with. You don't know when they are going to work in another media house, or you're going to find them in another media house. You would have already spoiled a relation here. Whenever he will go or she will go, they may never work or help you. Something else we need to know, that the people who appear on the bylines or whose names appear on the stories do not decide what is published. Whoever decides how a story appears on a newspaper, for example, is the editor who's going to rewrite this story and give it a headline that the reporter didn't bring. So always be softer on the reporter unless they are notorious. Seek to find what other addition, or listen to them. Ask them, why did you publish this when my interview stated something else? So I already talked about giving opinion, even if just to repeat a point. The op-ed, we already spoke about them, the long shelf lives. Another option is radio shows. Just propose that I know you guys have this program every morning or every Thursday. I would like us to discuss something of this sort. Please bring another guest from another organization. We can sit and compare notes. And then if it makes sense, it's called pitching. If it makes sense to an editor, they can always call you. Letters to the editor are viewed as some of the cheapest or the easiest ways, the easiest content, cheapest content in publications. But letters to the editor and op-eds are the same thing. It's just that letters to the editors are shorter and easiest to get, because even students who are still learning to write always get such opportunities. Do not throw away such opportunities. You may be shocked that they get some of the highest readers. Express yourself there. Every opportunity matters. So comment on pieces appearing international or internationally on issues that are related to what our focus is, especially on days like World Environment, World Water Day, World Bee Day. Those world days, they're important. If there's a reason to our opportunity, or you have knowledge or authority in that area, approach the media and say, I would like to give an opinion piece on that day, or talk on TV when you're discussing this, if you're covering it, or give it as a proposal. Helping with fact checking on issues around green faith interests, which is still on climate justice and stuff like that, can be of help, which I said earlier. Just offer to say that I am available to give ideas on this issue. You can always call us with someone, and then we do it on in studio. The rest or the same if published on print or digital by that media house that you got a space in. Be sure to pick, because they also need publicity. It would be good for them, for you to share what they have published for you in your own social media. So you gain, they also gain. So it's a good thing for them. Right of reply is what I mentioned earlier. Ask to comment or put things into perspective should you feel that you are wrong, instead of always opting for court. And the last one, which I would rush on very fast, is the stories of change or the positive outcomes of capacity building and other projects that we do in the fields. How do you identify these stories of change? So check what you did earlier from the beginning. When you started your project, what was the situation? And that's the importance of taking photos when you're starting your projects and as you keep moving. It will show you the difference, the changes, the results, the success stories of your actions. Be happy to share this kind of stories. Don't keep them to yourselves. You never know who you're going to motivate. You never know who's watching. You never know who you're going to make to act in a way that you wanted them to act. Or even you can learn from this that after publicity, you will know if you have more enemies than you had earlier and know how to deal with them. So make them more visible, such stories with images and a lot of infographics. Also encourage relationships with communications team. When you're going to the field, always ask for a tool to tell you what you should look at. The communications team can always share with you. It still goes back to the 5 Ws. Go to the field and check where did we start? What did we start? How did we start? This is the match we have found. How did we do it? Who was important in this thing? So the journey of your project can be so well told with the help of communications. Do not insist on doing it. If you don't have the skill, always ask for help from the communications team within the organization. So post your material, be accurate whenever you're posting online of the same success stories, so that again, you do not lose audience. Then have an eye for interesting things. Some things just crop up. You're in the middle of your story out in the field, and then there's this child. I'm in Africa. There's this child who just appears carrying a jerrycan and of water, and you're wondering, it is midday, children are supposed to be in school. What is this child doing? Interviewing that child alone can give you a deeper aspect of what is going on in that area that you may not have planned to see. So there are things that crop up, but they may even be your reason for starting another project that focuses on an angle that you didn't see. So always have an eye for interesting things that are away from the script that you went with for your projects. Take photos of projects and share widely. Rose did a good job on the photos, and have voices or testimonies of people without faking. And the voices come in this way. You've gone back to where you did your actions, and there's this person who your action affected directly, and they are really out and saying, I want to thank you because of you, I am now able to do this. If it were not for you, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be where I am. Those are testimonials. Those are sincere expressions of what your actions has been able to achieve, but from someone else. It is not you boasting, but it's that person coming to remind you that it's because of you that I am now this happy. Record those ones in whatever language they come. They can always be translated. Take photos, use them well, without, of course, forgetting the ethics surrounding places, issues around child reporting, or maybe ethics around HIV, ethics around abuse. Be very careful whose faces are appearing in those 3 cases I've stated. But even if it means blurring their faces to tell your story, do it. Because it is a win. It is not coming from, it is not you going with a report and saying, to your donor and saying, the money you gave me, I used it to go here. I managed to build this number of classrooms. I managed to change this number of people. I managed to train this number of people. It's someone else telling your story for you. It is more powerful than what you could have told yourself. So this reporting tool that we will be sharing with you is there to help guide. And beyond that, I want to say thank you for listening, and thank you in my language comes as Asante. Amasagilano is in Ethiopia, and overall, thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much to Lynette and to Rose for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with us. It's just so much information. I hope everyone here feels that, maybe a little overwhelmed, but also just inspired and ready to think about how to use some of this in your local contexts. So for the sake of time, I wanted to see if there are any questions. You can put them in the chat. We have a few more minutes. And then also, Lynette or Rose, if there's an email address where people can reach out to you with their questions, and then we can put answers to questions we receive in our follow-up emails and also be responding to them in the chat. But we definitely want to respect everyone's time, everyone's curiosities and questions, and be available to you to support that. So we'll be sending out our recording, our slideshow, and very happy to be available for any questions that you have. So go ahead and put those in the chat or put them in a follow-up email. And then I'm going to ask our pastor, Sam Kaloki, if he would help send us out in spirit and faith and share a closing spiritual grounding with us. And then we have just a few more logistical things to tie up before we say goodbye.
Hello. Hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Pastor Sam Kaloki from Kenya, Machakos. I'm a climate change activist. Now, the reason why I'm pushing for climate justice is because, number one, when we read the Bible, Genesis chapter 2, verse 15, it says that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to, number one, to tend, and number two, to keep it. God's original plan in creating the earth and putting man in the Garden of Eden was to tend it and to keep it. Now, when you look at this word, to tend it, it's to work on it, to make the earth fruitful. In other words, to cultivate. And cultivation is that effort that a farmer makes to ensure that he will produce a bountiful of crop as possible. He plows the ground that is tending it. Two, from the God's original intention in creating the earth and putting man on the earth, is to keep it. And here where you come in, he says now to keep it is to take care of it or to watch over. Now, as a Christian, I feel it is our obligation, and God requires us to keep, to take care, to tend, and to keep the ecology, and this includes taking measures of to prevent environmental disasters. These are some of the reasons that why make me and think that all of us, that it is the responsibility of every person, regardless of your faith, either Muslim, Christians, Indians, Buddhists, or any other religion. It is our responsibility to take care, to keep the earth that God gave us. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear. So this is something that I have a passion in. And I believe that together, all of us, following God's original intention, we can do justice to environment. We can do justice to climate. Thank you. That was my brief.
Thank you so much, Pastor Sam, very much for being with us. Okay, friends, thank you so much for your time, for your energy, for your passion for this work. We would love to know how you felt about this call, what you learned on this call. We have a brief 3-question survey that we'll put into the chat. And if you would just take, 1-2 minutes to fill this out before moving on to your next task, we would really appreciate it. And also you have in the chat box, and we'll send it again in an email, the link to the slideshow today. And lastly, we have another call coming up, Faiths for a Just Transition, talking about the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty with many faith partners. And so please come on September 28th if you are available, and share the word about this call. We would really love to have, this is a great call for people who you're just bringing into the work to come and learn a little bit more about Green Faith from a multi-faith international perspective. So let's come together again on the 28th, and that's all. So thank you so much. In just a moment, we will ask everyone to unmute so you can all say goodbye to each other in whatever manner you say goodbye in our diverse languages and traditions. So peace, paz, shalom, salam, namaste, shanti, ashe. Please unmute yourself and let's thank each other and say goodbye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor
Bye.
Sam. Thank you, Lynette and Rose.
Thank you all.
Good to see you here.
Namaste.
Everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.